Welcome, welcome everyone to Take the Lead's virtual happy hour. We are so excited to start our virtual happy hour series. I just can't begin to tell you. I'm Gloria Felt. I'm co-founder and president of Take the Lead. And Take the Lead, as many of you know, and we have almost 400 people signed up tonight. And I know that people are so excited to get to talk to and listen to Carla Harris, who is our very special guest. We are just thrilled to have her. She's going to do a masterclass strategy session, and we're all going to learn so much from that. Take the Lead, as many of you know, has the mission to prepare, develop, inspire, and propel women to take their fair and equal share of leadership positions across all sectors by 2025. And we do that in a variety of different ways. You can find out a lot about us on our website, taketheleadwomen.com. But primarily we do a lot of Take the Lead Teaches training, both on the ground and on air, as we're doing tonight. And we're so thrilled to have Carla with us. And we're going to get going here in just a moment. We want to make sure that you mark your calendar to come back on April 8th for Claudia Chan. That will be the next virtual happy hour, founder of She Media. And then on May 13th, we're going to have journalist Jessica Bennett on manterrupting and other gender bilingual communications issues. So we've got a full complement of virtual happy hours coming up once a month. Mark your calendar. If you're not already signed up for our newsletter, please go to our website and sign up so that you'll always be the first to know when we're going to be having something exciting like this happening. Today we have a record number of participants from all across the United States and even many different countries around the world, from India to France to Singapore to Australia. We're so thrilled that the word about Take the Lead has gotten out everywhere. So grab a glass of wine, grab a cup of tea, that's what I'm having, or as Carla Harris would say, a big girl drink.
Yeah.
We encourage your questions, and we're going to get to as many as we possibly can today. Now, I want to just quickly review how you can ask your questions. You can submit your questions using the box right under this screen, right under the screen that you're watching. First, you'll select the pencil icon, and a little bitty box will pop up. You type your name and location into that box and click OK. And then you can type your question. You can also tweet your question to us at Take Lead Women, at Take Lead Women, not Take the Lead Women, at Take Lead Women. And we'll be watching our Twitter feed also to see if anybody tweets us those questions. So while we're thinking about social media, I just do want to add that you can help us spread the word about Take the Lead and our important mission by tweeting us at any time, joining us on Facebook, joining us on Twitter, and also just so you have the some hashtags for tonight and you know how to tweet Carla. Carla is at Carla Ann Harris, at Carla Ann without an E. We hold that in common, Carla. My middle name is Ann without an E also. So at Carla Ann Harris, or as I said, at Take Lead Women, and then I am at Gloria Felt, F-E-L-D-T. And we invite you to do that. We invite you to join us at any time on social media and including our community on Mighty Bell to continue this conversation. All right, well, I hope that gets us all ready and prepared because we are just thrilled to pieces to have our special guest presenter today, Carla Harris. Carla is Vice Chairman and Managing Director of Morgan Stanley, author of Expect to Win, and her new book, which we're going to talk about today, which is called Strategize to Win. Carla is also, she's a Renaissance woman. I want you to know that. She is a gospel singer, a Wall Street ceiling breaker, and the powerful speaker who totally rocked the house at Take the Lead Challenge launch event last year about this time. We had 3,000 people in the auditorium. We had 500,000 people on live stream. Carla Harris trended on Twitter globally when she gave this speech. So what we want to do is just to start out with a very short 5-minute clip of Carla speaking, where you'll find out a little bit more about Carla Harris, who she is, and what some of her ideas are, and then we will jump right in to questions. So here we go.
Pleasure to be here today, and I thank Gloria Feld for giving me the opportunity to spend a few minutes with you, sharing with you what I like to call Carla's Pearls. My hard-earned and hard-learned pearls after being a woman on Wall Street for 26 and a half years. Yes, that's an amen. I dare say that I have learned a few things about not only surviving, but more importantly, thriving in the seat that you sit in or the seat that you aspire to sit in. And that's what the pearls are all about. I had the privilege of writing a book in 2009 called Expect to Win. And since then, I've had the privilege of speaking all over the world about the pearls. And over and over and over, people ask me all the time, why did you write this book? Why are you so honest about everything that happened in your career? And I will tell you why. When I walked out of the lauded halls of Harvard undergrad and Harvard Business School, I embraced this whole concept of a meritocracy. Success was merely a function of how smart you were and how hard you worked. Yet, when I started my career, it didn't quite work out that way. You see, I thought I was pretty smart. Harvard undergrad, magna cum laude, Harvard Business School. Pretty smart, huh? Okay. I'm from the South, so I knew there are very few of those boys that could outwork me. Yet, the combination of the two did not equal maximizing my success. So I had to ask myself, what's missing in this success equation? And being the anal person that I am, I went to the dictionary and I looked up the word meritocracy. And I don't care whose dictionary you go to. If you look up the word meritocracy, you will see the word objective somewhere in that definition. Yet, in all of our evaluative equations, there is a human element. And if there is a human element, by definition, it is subjective. It cannot be 100% meritocratic. So what are some of those other things that influenced your success equation? And that's what the pearls are all about. So tonight, I'm going to leave you with 3 of the pearls and Expect to Win. We're going to talk about the power of authenticity. We're going to talk about fear and the importance of taking risks. And we're going to talk about relationships as a part of that, especially the sponsor relationship. And then finally, we will talk about one of the most important pearls, and that is perception is the co-pilot to reality. How people perceive you will directly impact how they deal with you. The power of authenticity. You are your own competitive advantage. Nobody can be you the way that you can be you. So the last thing that you should, yes. The last thing that you should ever do is to submerge that which is uniquely you. Anytime that you are trying to behave or speak in a way that is inconsistent with who you really are, you will create a competitive disadvantage for yourself. If your success depends upon your ability to successfully penetrate relationships, the easiest way to penetrate a relationship is to bring your authentic self to the table. If you bring your authentic self to the table, people will trust you. And trust is at the heart of any successful relationship. It is at the heart of any successful relationship. As quiet as it's kept, most people are not comfortable in their own skin. So when they see someone who is comfortable and confident in their own skin, they will gravitate towards you. They want some of that. That was a very interesting lesson for me to learn. When I first started in this business, I didn't want anybody to talk about the fact that I was a singer. I wanted to be known as a no-nonsense, hard-driving, analytical, quantitative investment banker. I'm not here to sing and dance, boys. Let's not get it twisted. I didn't want anybody to talk about that until I saw the client reaction. My colleagues would often go into a pitch with me and say, oh, this is Carla Harris, our capital markets banker. But what you really ought to know about Carla is that she's an amazing gospel singer. She's done 3 CDs, 4 sold-out concerts at Carnegie Hall, and blah, 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 blah. And there I was, rolling my eyes until I saw the client reaction. Oh, you're a singer. Oh, I so admire people who can sing. I personally love to sing, but my family will only let me sing in the shower. And and maybe you could talk to my daughter about how she can integrate her love of the arts and her academics and blah, blah, blah. And there we were having a 15-minute meeting before the meeting. Are you with me? Take the lead.
Yes,
Carla,
ma'am.
Carla, I am so with you. We are so with you. We are so with you. We are so glad to have you here tonight. Why don't you start? Why don't you start by telling us? I know you're coming to us from a conference where you're speaking. You're so busy, and you have taken your time out to do this. Tell us a little bit about your background, how you came to choose the route that you took to be in the financial industry, which has got to have been a really tough one when you started out. How did you get from where you started to where you are?
Yes, I'll tell you. Well, I'm from Jacksonville, Florida. And first, let me also say, Gloria, thanks for having me on. I'm very excited to be as a part of the Take the Lead happy hour, and one of the first. And I also want to say welcome and thank you to all those who tuned in with us today for this conversation. But I hail from Jacksonville, Florida. And growing up, Gloria, I had no idea that I wanted to be in financial services. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. But the summer after my sophomore year at Harvard, I had an internship through the SEO program, Sponsors for Educational Opportunity, which is still around today. And that was the summer that frankly changed the trajectory of my life, because all of a sudden I was exposed to finance, exposed to Wall Street for the first time. And I realized that the things that I saw in the law, I saw in finance. I wanted to be able to call the shots. I wanted to be able to use my economic training, my analytical and quantitative abilities. I wanted to have a certain lifestyle. And I like the fact that finance is so dynamic. You can never really master it all because it's always changing. Every day is a new day in the market. So no matter how many companies you take public, how many common stock transactions you do, you're doing it for the first time on that day when you are pricing that deal.
Wow, wow, wow. Well, I'm going to get to ask you just a couple of questions, because I have to tell you, we've already had questions coming in for the last couple of days. So I want to give as much time as we can to the people who are here with us tonight. And I join you in saying thank you to everyone for being here. We're so thrilled. And but I want to just ask you a little bit about you know, you do a lot of extracurricular activities in addition to what your sort of, I guess you would say, your day job is. I know that you chair the National Women's Business Council, for example.
Yes.
Many of us are pulled in many different ways to do things like that, and we're asked to do this and we're asked to do that. How do you make those decisions? How do you strike those balances for yourself?
Yes, that's a great question, Gloria. And I do the things that I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about what I do at Morgan Stanley. I took on the role as chair of the National Women's Business Council when I was appointed by President Obama, because I've always been very focused on women and business. And this was an opportunity to have a national platform where hopefully we could change the conversation around women entrepreneurs and find a way to expand their capacity, so that you would have more companies of scale that would create jobs that were owned and led by women. So I could not turn that opportunity down, because that's been a part of who I have been for 28 years on Wall Street as a woman in business.
Well, taking off from that, I think one of the things that many of us, especially women and people of color, are always feeling is that we're being pulled and tugged and asked to be whatever it is the culture may wish us to be. If there's one word I would use to describe Carla Harris, just from the times I've had the opportunity to be with you, it would be something you said in your speech many times, and that is authentic. You are so you. How did you get that way, and what advice would you give to the rest of us to be? Yes. How do you get to be authentic?
Yes, well, first of all, you have to spend a lot of time with yourself and ask the questions, who am I? What kind of person am I when I'm alone? What kind of friend am I? What kind of spouse am I? What kind of professional am I? I've always been very introspective. So I know Carla Harris very well, and I like Carla Harris a lot. And I never wanted to compromise that, because I guess along the way I would see people who would be confused, whether it was in college or graduate school or even professionally, who are not really sure of who they were. And if you don't have a grounding there, it's very easy for you to get distracted, especially when challenges come.
So what
And
would be the questions that you would suggest that people ask themselves? Can you just give one or two
sure.
questions that people
Okay,
might ask themselves?
absolutely. So the first question is, who am I as a friend? What kind of friend am I? Am I someone who's loyal? Am I someone who loves to give advice? Am I someone who keep other people's confidences? Who am I as a professional? Am I driven by my agenda? Am I driven by the firm's agenda? You know, what is my personal agenda? What would I like to have? What makes me happy? What brings me joy? What makes me angry? All of those questions help you to really define who you are, so you know how you will react in different situations.
That takes a lot of courage, I think, to do that. Do you feel that it takes courage, or do you feel that it's almost well, just let me just ask you that question straight out.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I don't think it takes as much courage as it is a necessity. Because if you don't really know who you are, Gloria, it's very easy, as I said, to get distracted when things come, or when people come and you start comparing yourself to other people. The biggest mistake any of us can make, and I think women make this mistake a lot, especially when they're trying to say, you know, can I have it all? Or, you know, am I a good mother? Am I a good professional? We so often fall in the trap of evaluating ourselves against somebody else's report card. The key is to define the report card for you. What works for your household? What makes you happy? If your husband is doing all of the cooking and all of the cleaning and all of the laundry, and that works for your household, that's the definition of success in your household. If you have an opportunity to go to 25% of your children's soccer games and your child is still very happy, that is what works for your household. But how dare you say, well, sometimes I'm not a good mommy because I don't make all the games. That's not how you should be evaluating yourself. What works for your household? Those are the rules.
I love that idea of your own report card, creating your own report card. I think that would definitely fall for me in the category of one of Carla's great pearls. Love that one. I'm going to remember that one. So I have a question here from Ruby in Georgia. What is your best advice for someone transitioning to a new career field after being underemployed and feeling undervalued professionally for a long time?
Oh, thank you, Ruby, for that question. That's right in the middle of the fairway of my new book, Strategize to Win. So if you are transitioning, Ruby, the first thing, thank you, Gloria, the first thing you should do is to understand what the key success factors are for the job that you want. So if you, let's say, for example, Ruby, you want to be a nurse. You know, obviously you need to have a credential to be a nurse, but what also makes a good nurse? Somebody who's relationship oriented, somebody who is a problem solver, somebody who works great under pressure. So if you understand some of those attributes associated with success for being a great nurse, then when you sit down in that interview chair and you tell Ruby's story, you should tell Ruby's story using some of those key success factors and showing why you're a good relationship person, showing why you're very solution-oriented or a great problem solver. That's what you should do as you transition. The second thing I'm going to say, Gloria, is Ruby needs to spend some time making sure that she understands what it is she really wants to do. The fact that you've been underemployed, Ruby, I'm going to tell you, is a great opportunity for you to sit back and say, if there were no challenges in my way, what would I do right now? How would I spend my day? If money were no object, I'll pay you whatever you want to get paid, Ruby. What would I do? Target in on that thing which is going to make you happy, that you get excited about to get out of the bed every morning, and start going towards that direction for that job.
Wow, thank you. So here's a question from Jackie in Arizona. Jackie says, how do you go about getting laser focused when there are so many other things or people that shout out and demand attention?
Oh, yes. Great question, Jackie. I'm a big fan of lists. So I write my to-do list down, and that helps me get focused. Sometimes there's so many things on the list that I have to compartmentalize and say personal, work, extracurricular, and then I prioritize within those quadrants. And then I start to attack number 1, number 2, number 3, because that way you can stay focused. It's sitting on a piece of paper, so even if you get distracted, it brings you right back to that list.
Oh my goodness, you know, that's one of those things that very often we know, but we find it difficult to stick with. And
Yeah.
because you have so much good advice packed into this book, Strategize to Win, and I do want to hold it up here for a while so everyone can see it and know that they can get it. Where can they get it? At any bookstore?
Yes, they can get it at any bookstore. They can get it at barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com. You can download it through iTunes, iBooks.
Fantastic. You can also find it on Take the Lead's book page, because we put just a few books that we really like on our book page.
Ah,
and
thank you.
Definitely one of them, so people can find it there too. Why did you write Strategize to Win after you had done Expect to Win? Why did you write Strategize to Win, and what will people find when they go read it?
Yes. Thank you so much for the question, Gloria. I had no aspirations to write a second book, but I kept running into people that were in two groups. I kept running into millennials and Xers who were asking questions like, there are 5 or 6 things that I'd like to do. How do I figure out which one? And how do I get to that dream job? Or I just graduated in 2008, 2009. It was the beginning of the financial crisis. I took a job just to get a job with no strategy around it at all. Now I hate it. How do I get out? How do I position myself? Do I have to go back to school? That was one group. The other group of people that I kept running into were boomers and traditionalists who were saying things like, you know, I've been doing this for 20 years. I don't want to do it anymore. How do I transition into a completely different career? Or I was displaced during the financial services crisis. And just like Ruby, I've been out for 2 or 3 years. How do I work my way back in to getting the job that I want? So that's what motivated me
to write it. And I will tell you, I have been buying it particularly for young people just entering the workforce.
Oh,
but all the advice in it is just as applicable to anyone at any stage if they're in transition. I think I said to you at one point that I think I may be in my 5th career, but I still found things in it that I can use, because just when you think you're done, there's always something new. There's always something new. There's always a new thing in life. Since you mentioned millennials, I want to throw this question at you. It's from a viewer. I think this must have come in over Twitter. How do you connect with young women so we can inspire them at an early age to follow in the footsteps of people like you to take the lead?
Well, I thank you. And, you know, I think the way to do that, Gloria, is to engage with young women. They are hungry. They are so hungry for the information. They are hungry for the guidance. They will listen. And if they see that you are interested in them because of the questions that you ask them, or you want to know about what's going on in their life, then that actually makes them even more interested in connecting with you. And that's how you do it, is to show the interest. And even in a small conversation, pass along a nugget or two.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you. And I suspect there are many young women out there who wish they could just get you for an hour or 15 minutes just to ask you the questions they want to ask. So here's a question from Terry in Connecticut. How do we get men more involved in this process? In
terms of getting young men involved, she means?
She just said men in general. Men in general. Yeah.
You know, I think I'm actually pretty optimistic about that, because there are a lot of men who are boomers and even Xers now who have young daughters, and they are really interested in finding out how to engage and engage better, and to get role models in front of their daughters. So I think it's about engaging them in the conversation. And it's as simple as saying, you know what, I can use some help. I have this young girl whose name is Gloria, and I'd like her to hear a different perspective. Will you have a conversation with her? So use our power, exercise our relationship currency to get those guys involved in those conversations directly with those young women.
Say a little more about what you mean when you're talking about relationship currency. I'll tell you, I have an axiom that I've always used in my jobs, that the world turns on human connections.
Yeah.
And because I really think almost everything that happens in this world happens because of a relationship. I love the term relationship currency, and I'd like to understand it a little bit better. Would you explain that so that we all know what you're talking about, and give us some examples of how we might use our relationship currency to add value to ourselves and our organization?
Absolutely, and that's why I wrote about it in Strategize to Win. Relationship currency is defined as that currency that you earn from the relationships that you invest in, the people that you get to know in your environment. And when I talk about currency, currency is used to get something. right? So if you have good relationship currency, you can go to your boss and ask for a different opportunity. You can go and ask for your salary to be reviewed for equity, to make sure that you're in line with everybody else in your environment. You can ask for a different assignment. If you have a good relationship with people, if they don't know you very well and they are not vested in you, there's really no reason that they need to do anything on your behalf. And just doing a good job is not enough, which is why I make the distinction between performance currency, which is earned from your doing a good job, and relationship currency, which is earned from your interacting with people. They get to know you. They get vested in your success. They want to be a part of your success. And it's important that you build these relationships, because without them, you will not be able to ascend in any organization. It is that relationship currency that allows you to have a sponsor. And boy, Gloria, you've heard me talk about sponsorship a lot, and that's the person that behind closed doors will argue on your behalf why you should get the promotion, why you should get the next great opportunity. It doesn't just happen. You have to invest in a relationship to even ask someone to be a sponsor.
Did you have a sponsor or sponsors as you were going through your career trajectory?
Absolutely. I didn't always have a sponsor throughout my career, but at the time for those critical promotions, particularly the critical promotion to managing director, absolutely. I had someone who carried my paper into the room, as I like to say it. They carried my paper. They went in and talked about Carla Harris and represented that she would make a great partner of the firm and use their currency on my behalf. I wasn't in the room when that conversation was being had, and none of us are in the room when somebody is thinking about us for a promotion or a new opportunity. They are talking about you behind closed doors. So somebody has to carry your paper. Someone has to represent you.
I recall in reading the book that you also say that we should get to know people at all levels of the organization, that we should form those relationships with people at every level. Talk a little bit about that, and why do you say that?
Yes, I'm a big fan that your relationships should be horizontal and they should also be vertical. And it really is important, if you're fairly senior, that you have good relationships with people who are junior, because after all, how can you lead if other people won't follow? And you'd be surprised how many times senior people will ask other folks, what do you think of Gloria? Do you think she'd be great in that role? Now, you may say that's not fair for them to ask, but that happens as a part of the natural human process. And if people are saying, oh, yeah, she's great. Oh, yeah, I'd work for her in a heartbeat. That matters. That influences somebody's judgment about you. And judgments are influenced by relationships. And that's what causes somebody to make the call and say, yes, it should be Gloria. If you are isolated and you have no relationships in your environment, you are probably not going to ascend. And I would go so far as to say you probably won't be very successful in that environment over the long term, which is why it's critical. So you need junior folks because they have skills and perspectives that will make you a better leader. You need senior folks, obviously, who might have to opine on your ability to ascend. And you need to have a strong relationship with your peers. They need to respect you also.
Let's talk a little bit about the part of the equation that is perhaps what we are giving to other people. Mm-hmm. It's you know, we've been talking about the things we want to get for ourselves that would help us advance, but it seems like that's a two-sided coin.
Yes, ma'am.
And would you share with us, Carla, your thoughts about our own selves, our own generosity, our own giving to other people, and perhaps being sponsors for other people as we go?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad you asked that question, Gloria, because I think it is absolutely essential, frankly, to share what you have learned with other people. Frankly, that's how you grow, and that's frankly how you become more powerful, right? Because you can. You don't do it to do anything in particular. You do it because you can. Somebody helped you along the way. It is only fair and frankly your responsibility that you let somebody else stand on your shoulders. So if you've learned something about working with a particular person, you should share it. If you've learned something about how to get to a certain promotion, you should share it. It's important for us to do that. We cannot let the next generation of leaders reinvent the wheel. If they have to reinvent the wheel, it's going to take them a long time to get to that seat of leadership. And your whole organization is about leadership at 2025. Well, the way that they're going to get there is for those of us who have gotten any level of experience or power is that we pass that along so we can accelerate their journey. It is a necessity.
I am so glad that you laid that out so clearly, because, you know, sometimes when we have these conversations, it feels very individualistic.
Yeah.
But really, we are always talking about us, not just, we're talking about we're talking about us, we're talking about the community of us, rather
Absolutely.
than just me, 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 me.
Right. And Gloria, may I say this? People ask me all the time, you must have a lot of people asking you to mentor them. How do you know who to mentor? Because you can't mentor everybody. The first criteria for me, the most important criteria, is I have to be comfortable that that person is going to do it for somebody else. That is, frankly, the most important thing. I'm not going to spend my time with you if I think it's going to just be for you. You can get advice from anybody, but I have to feel comfortable that when someone knocks on your door and they ask you for 15 minutes, that you will gladly open the door and do for them what I did for you.
So a very important question, and it actually applies in some sense to the next question that I want to ask you, that's come in from Vivian in Oregon. And I have to say, I get a question that's like this almost every time I make a speech, every time I do a workshop, every time I teach a course. I get this question, and it makes me really upset. So I want to hear how you answer it.
Oh, I know what it is.
I bet you do. I bet you do. If there are other women in the workplace that don't want to see women succeed, you've heard that before, right? Don't we hear that? Okay, what do you do? What do you do, especially if you're targeted in this situation?
Yes.
Oh,
well, first of all, whoever it is that you think is targeting you, they're not the only person that can help you to be successful. So frankly, I say ignore that distraction, because that's what it is, a distraction. And you find other people in your environment that you think will be supportive of you. It is unfortunate that she would not be supportive, but as my grandmother used to say, that's not the only game in town, right? You go to someone else, whether it's a male or a female, that you think will be supportive. But whatever you do, make sure that you don't become that woman.
Ooh, good advice. That is fabulous advice. Now, to take it one step further, I do believe that there is a trope, a media narrative, or something that seems to want to convince women that other women don't support them. I've always felt it must be by people who don't want women to succeed in the first place. But because I know for myself, I have had mentors, both men and women, and I, you know, as someone who's been an activist for women for pretty much my whole life, I just have not seen that women not supporting other women as being something that really is true in the larger sense, in the statistical sense. What are your observations? Because I think it is important to grapple with that media narrative that's out there.
Yeah, I don't agree with the media narrative. I think that there are far more women that are interested in supporting other women. And I, like you, I have seen that more often than not. I can say I have seen the queen bee syndrome before, where someone thinks, well, there can only be one of us, so it's going to be me. But I will tell you, that's been so few instances relative to the number of times I've heard a woman say, oh, I'm going to help her because she's a woman, or I want to see another woman in this role, or a woman extending herself to someone else. So I would not say that it's pervasive. I would say it exists, but it's not pervasive.
And we should just sort of let it go when it is and go on, do something else with somebody who does care.
Next.
Right? Okay. All right. Next. Well, then the next question. The next question is from Christy in California. She'd like some advice for dealing with a work situation where she was hired for one job, but there was a change of leadership. And then what happened was they apparently wanted her to do a different job, and she's trying to figure out what to do. How does she make a jump? What does she do? How does she deal with that?
Okay. There was a change of leadership. So the question is whether or not the people who left were the people that hired her. Mm-hmm. And if those are the folks that left, then she should go to the new leadership and talk about what she was hired to do, and talk about what she is doing, and say, I'd like to understand your priorities. I was hired to do X because that was a priority, but I've been doing Y. So I'd like to understand what you think the priorities are so that I can maximize my success under your leadership. That's the script.
It seems like the thread that goes through every bit of advice you've been giving is, again, it comes back to authenticity. It's like sort of ask for what you need to ask. Don't be afraid to address the issues, that you'll go further if you have the courage to just speak what needs to be spoken. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yes, yes, you are, because I feel strongly that there's only one person that has responsibility for our career, and that's us.
Right. Well, my guess is that you've had a totally stellar career for those of us looking at it from the outside. But my guess is that along the way, you might just have encountered a little pebble in the road or two.
Oh, sure.
And you know, it would be helpful perhaps for people to hear when did you stumble, if you stumbled? What was it that challenged you, and how did you deal with it?
Oh, sure. And I have to tell you that I am not an anomaly. I've had challenges like everybody else have. And in fact, Gloria, all of the pearls that I talk about, all of those pearls were acquired by making mistakes. When I walked in, I thought all I had to do was be smart and work hard. And as you've heard me say, that didn't quite get me there. So I had to think about what was missing. And I realized that I had the power to create a perception. And how did I figure that out? When I heard someone else talking about who I was, then I thought, is that me? Can't possibly be me. So that's when I realized, uh-oh, a perception is out there that I don't like or that's inconsistent with me. So what do I need to do to turn that around? Or I realized that I needed somebody advocating for me behind closed doors. Big mistake, thinking that I could just do it on my own and that I would let the work speak for me, which is why I write about that in Strategize to Win. So many people say, I'm not going to engage. I'm not going to play those politics. I'm going to keep my head down and work hard. I'm going to let my work speak for me. But guess what? The work does not speak. It takes a person that's going to talk about your work, your worth, your contribution in that context. So these were some of the big mistakes that I made walking in and even throughout my career. So it has been very valuable to learn those and to be able to pass them along.
You have no idea how I wish you had been around to give me that advice about 20 years ago. It would have been
I wish I had it 20 years ago.
Right, exactly. A question for you from Kim in Illinois. Do you have any secrets to balancing work and life for yourself?
Sure, and it goes back to the list. I do the same thing. I am a big fan, and I write about it in both books. Be the architect of your own agenda. What is your professional agenda and what is your personal agenda? What kind of skills do you want to get? What kind of people do you want to meet? What kind of networks do you want to build? What kind of pay do you want to have? All of that's in the professional agenda. But then on the personal agenda, what kind of relationship do I want to have? Spiritual and personal and romantic. You know, what kind of things would I like to do? Do I want to travel? Do I want to play the piano? Do I want to give concerts at Carnegie Hall? Whatever those things are, you create that agenda and then you execute.
Execute. Intentionality, and then do it. And
Absolutely.
Then put the legs on it and go do it. Go do it.
You must be intentional. It's so easy, Gloria. I'm glad we're having this conversation because in the world that we live in, we're all processing so much. It is so easy to get distracted, and it is so easy to let fear seep into your being, and you don't understand what's holding you back. You don't understand why you're not pursuing your goals, and somewhere if you unpack it, there's fear sitting right in the middle. And if you can identify that, then you can move that out of the way and move on.
Great advice, Carla. Thank you. Heather in Arizona, what advice can you share for negotiating your salary when you are aware that your male counterpart is making more than you are?
Well, 3 things, Heather. First of all, make sure that you understand the range, the market rate for the seat that you're in. Second of all, unless you've seen your male counterpart's W-2, you don't know what he's making. So don't fall into the trap of making that comparison unless you've seen his W-2. Doesn't matter what he said, he could be not telling you a truth, right? So if you're pretty sure you got that feeling inside, then go sit down and have that adult conversation and say, I just want to have my salary reviewed for equity. I want to make sure that I am compensated commensurate with my contribution. I'm working hard. I think I'm adding a lot of value, and I'd like to be paid at the top of the pay scale for the role that I'm in. And I'd like to understand that.
So what you're saying, I think, is you keep it, you make it not personal. You keep it on a business-like level. You're using facts and figures to back up what you're saying, so that it becomes not about you and that other person, but about what the job is and what value you bring to it. Am I hearing you correctly?
You are hearing me correctly. You should never make that comparison with that other person again, unless you have seen his W-2. And you should be very clear on what your contribution is and how people view that. Because suppose they tell you, well, you're okay, but you're sort of middle of the road. You're not at the top of the class, so we don't think you deserve to be at X level. Then you should say, oh, well, that's very interesting, and I'm disappointed to hear that, but I'd like to understand what I need to do to get to the top of the class, because that is my intention.
Fantastic. So Eve in Missouri wants to know, we've been talking in words that sort of imply people in large organizations, large corporations or nonprofit organizations of some sort. But Eva in Missouri wants to know some advice for entrepreneurs who are fighting to be taken seriously while creating their own corporate culture and structure, as opposed to working their way up through an existing organization.
Yes, the most important thing you can do as an entrepreneur is answer two questions. Why me? Meaning, why should someone do business with your company? And why now? What's the sense of urgency? And if you can roll that into your value proposition when you're talking to people, you say it as much as you possibly can. And then you find a sponsor, just like in a corporate environment, you find a sponsor that is going to expose you to other key relationships, either key suppliers or key customers.
Well, we do know that there is almost an explosion of women going into entrepreneurial businesses right now. And there are many different reasons for it. But one of the reasons that women give, very frequently actually, is that they are uncomfortable in the corporate culture. They don't like the culture of, we were just both out in Silicon Valley recently speaking. I heard many women talking about that there, but I think that's also true in large corporations of various different kinds. So that there's a good side and a bad side of that, and I think a lot of people are making millions and millions of dollars writing books telling women how to change themselves to fit into those cultures. But I'd love to hear you talk about how the organizations themselves might create cultures that women want to stay in. Mm-hmm. Because if women don't stay in the larger organizations, we'll never make the change.
Yes, understood. And it's funny, in my capacity as chair of the National Women's Business Council, our research is telling us that's not why women are starting their own businesses. What we're hearing more often than not is that they want to start their own businesses for reasons of flexibility. They want to have more flexibility broadly, or they really want to champion and be responsible for their own destiny. And so I'm very encouraged by the number of women who are starting businesses right now. But I think, frankly, Gloria, a lot of companies are really paying a lot of attention to what they can do to attract and retain women. I mean, I speak at a number of corporations, and I'm telling you, almost everywhere that I go, that is top of mind. How can we make sure that we keep great women? What is it that we need to do? And there are a lot of companies who are starting all kinds of programs to, try to create some of the flexibility that's driving some women to start their own businesses, trying to figure out how to create that flexibility even within that corporate environment. So, I think that people are putting real resources behind that right now. So I'm encouraged that we'll probably get to a place where, you will find the higher comfort level than what you're talking about now within these corporate environments.
Why don't we talk for a moment about why it is that the companies are trying to make their workplaces more attractive to women, because I think that's pretty important too. Talk to us. Talk us numbers.
I think there's a recognition, frankly, that if you want to be the best, that you need to have access to the best talent. And women are a large percentage, well over 50% of the undergraduates every year, increasingly of the graduate schools. And if you, again, want to have the best in your company, you need to have smart women in your company. And there's now lots of data that says if you have women in the C-suites, if you have women that are on your boards, the companies tend to do better, because it is that diversity of thought that leads you to those best ideas that allow you to innovate and to lead. And I think there's a growing recognition of that.
It's a part of my personal mission for women to understand that and to understand the power that we have in our hands right now, both to shape corporate cultures, but also simply to create the life we'd like to have within organizations. It's sort of like a fabulous moment. It's a perfect storm in a good way.
Yes, I agree with you. And one of the reasons I'm so excited about this time now is when you think about the emerging professional, the millennials, they value collaboration. They value inclusiveness. And women leaders are very good at getting people to contribute. And they are very good at bringing inclusivity into the room. So it's almost a perfect time, to use your word, a perfect storm for us to lead. When you think about who we will be leading and what they require and what they demand as professionals, it fits right in the sweet spot of who we have been traditionally as women leaders.
You just gave me goosebumps again. Oh, well, actually, this is interesting. Beverly wants to know, do you think there's an age limit on how the energy and spirit that drives one to seek success through strategy, hard work, and innovation? Is there an age limit to that?
You know, I don't think so. I can't say that there is, because I have seen some pretty spirited, spunky leaders who are octogenarians, for example. So it would be far be it from me to put an age number on it, and I hope to be one of those.
I was going to ask you what was next for you in your career trajectory and what you see, but I think you may have just answered that question.
Yes, I did.
Wonderful. We'll be seeing more of Carla Harris for a long time. Excellent. Evangeline in Arizona wants to know, what are some tips for moving from being a stay-at-home mom for over 20 years back into the workforce as a professional?
Yes, great question. And in fact, I deal with that in the last 2 chapters of Strategize to Win. I use that as an example explicitly. Again, take inventory of your skills. So you might have been a stay-at-home mom, but did you volunteer? What kind of charities did you volunteer for? Were you a part of your child's PTA? Did you lead certain initiatives that the PTA might have had, whether it was a travel initiative or a baking initiative? You know, all those things where you had to manage other people, where you had to motivate other people to contribute, and you didn't pay them, they didn't report to you. So that talks about your relationship building skills. That talks about your ability to be persuasive. You can talk about your organization skills and all the different things that you did in your community. So think about what you did for the last 20 years, and did that describe you as a relationship builder, someone who's highly organized, somebody with great technical skills, somebody who has great people management skills? Take those inventories and now think about what it is you really want to do, and think about the key success factors and sell those attributes. It doesn't matter that you were stay at home. Sell those attributes into that opportunity.
Well, I had a question similar to that in a conference where I was speaking recently, and just what popped out of my mouth was, we need to start putting parenting skills on our resumes, because if anything teaches you how to manage many different kinds of people, how to deal with emotional issues, how to organize, how to multitask, it is parenthood. So that's my latest mission is, we need to start putting our parenting skills on the resumes. The questions are still coming in hard and fast and furious, Carla, because everybody wants to know what you have to say about these things. We're going to have time for just a couple of more questions, and then we're going to start wrapping it up. But I do want to say to people out there that if you still have questions, or if your questions haven't been answered, just keep sending them to us, keep tweeting them to us. We'll find a way to get some answers and keep that conversation going. And you can keep the conversation going on our social media, on our Mighty Bell community, Take the Lead community on Mighty Bell, any place. We want to keep answering these questions, and maybe we can even get a little more of Carla's pearls as those questions come in. So here is a question about women who watched you I can't read the handwriting is the problem. Oh, at the launch, at the launch. Women who watched you at the launch say you stood out as the speaker who did it for them. What do you think of this reaction and your contribution to Take the Lead?
Yes, I was very happy with it. I am always.
I didn't ask that question. I promise you.
So, okay, all right. I was very inspired to know that the audience was inspired, because there's nothing that gives me more joy than being able to share Carla's pearls and to have them absorbed and then used by the audience. So yes, it made me feel terrific.
Well, I'll have to say, I don't think I've ever seen anybody own a stage quite like you did. The entire, I mean, it was a 3,000 person auditorium, and everybody was just eating out of your hands, even singing with you. And this is actually a follow-up question to that. Stephanie in Arizona would like to have you talk about your journey to excelling in public speaking. How did you learn that? How did you learn to do that, what you do? The Carla magic.
I'll have to tell Stephanie that I've never had a public speaking class. I've never gone to Toastmasters. I just wanted to be that speaker that would connect with someone. And I tell people all the time, the key is to be comfortable in your own skin, be very comfortable with your content, and speak as if you're talking to one person. Because most of us are very successful when we're talking to one person. So think about it being one person. It might happen to be 3,000 in the room, but my prayer always is if I can get to one person that feels like it was the right call for them to come in that room that day, that I'm happy.
Wow. You know, I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, and you are free to say no if you don't want to do this right now. But you're leading the whole crowd that night in singing "Expect to Win" was truly one of the highlights. It might be a good way to close out this conversation if you would be willing to just give us a little verse of it. And like I said, feel free to say no, because we can all buy your CD.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope you all do buy my CD, but I will give you a little bit here. Expect to win, no matter what you're up against. Don't give up, don't give in. Oh, yes, you can. Not fear, but faith will win the race. Don't give up, don't give in. Expect to win.
All right. Carla, thank you so much. I just want to wrap up with one more question, since this is Women's History Month.
Okay.
And we are doing a virtual happy hour. And I'm going to ask this of all the people out there, too, and ask them to just send in their answers to this question. I'm going to take my teacup and hold it up here for a second. What woman in your life, or what woman in history, would you most like to give a toast to for Women's History Month?
That's easy. My beloved mother. She has passed on, but I would toast Billie Joyce Harris every day.
That is lovely. Thank you so much. So hang in there with us for just another minute, Carla. I'm gonna sort of wrap some things up, and then we're gonna have one last back and forth here, if you will. So we're to everybody who's watching or who's with us tonight, and you too, Carla. We are trying to decide on a virtual happy hour playlist. We're going to make a virtual happy hour playlist, and we're going to share it with everyone. And we need your help to do that. So would like to know what personal song is your go-to power-up song. And we know a lot of us are going to pick Expect to Win now, but what is yours? And in fact, if you'd even be willing to answer that question, or if you can't answer that question, we'd love for you to. And we'd like to ask everybody who's out there to just tweet it to us or tell it to us on Mighty Bell or any of the social media, because we truly, by our next virtual happy hour, which will be April 8th with Claudia Chan, we want to have a playlist that we can share with people. That will be a real, get you going kind of a playlist. Do you have a go-to power-up song?
Yes, I actually have 3.
All right, what are they?
Expect to Win, Faith, which is the last song on my album, Unceasing Praise, and the third one is That Girl Is on Fire by Alicia Keys.
Oh, I love that one. I love that one. That's one of my favorite ones too. So this is just a reminder to everybody that I know you all have really enjoyed Carla Harris, and we can all give her a virtual round of applause here. You can't hear everybody, but I know everybody's out there applauding you, Carla. And that next month, April 8th, we'll have Claudia Chan, founder of She Media, and she'll be talking about how she has started her successful she calls it a for-purpose business. It's a really interesting concept, and I'm really looking forward to talking with her. And then May 13th, you're going to love this one too. Journalist Jessica Bennett is going to talk with us about manterrupting and other gender bilingual communication issues that we all need to know about. So be sure to sign up for our newsletter. Go to our website, sign up for it if you're not already on it. Follow us on Twitter at Take Lead Women, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. Join our community on Mighty Bell, and let's keep these conversations going. And let us know anytime you have an idea that you'd like us to act on with respect to another speaker that you'd like to have, or a topic that you'd particularly like for us to offer. We want to hear from you. So I just want to say once again, thank you, Carla Harris. Thank you so much for your time, for your pearls, for your aura of optimism and can do. I love that. It just fills me up, and I appreciate it so much. Your passion for helping us all figure our lives out and strategize how to win in our careers and in our lives. So thank you all for joining Take the Lead today, and we can't wait to see you next month.
Thank you, Gloria.
Virtual handshake, virtual hug. All right, till we see you next, power to you, and keep taking the lead.